We begin tonight with the announcements by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a 6-month provisional wage increment for low-grade workers to cushion the impact of fuel subsidy removal. But the president, who made this announcement at his nationwide broadcast to mark Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, also promises to reposition the country with bold economic reforms.
Dear compatriots,
in a series of many firsts since assuming office as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Tinubu released his thoughts on Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, commencing with appreciation for the nation's founding fathers.
Let us commend our founding fathers and mothers. Without them, there would have been no modern Nigeria. From the fading embers of colonialism, their activism, dedication, and leadership gave life to the belief in Nigeria as a sovereign and independent nation.
In his 15 minutes nationwide broadcast, the president says he's unwavering in his resolve to lay a solid foundation.
Those who sought to perpetuate the fuel subsidy and broken foreign exchange policies are people who will build their family mansion in the middle of a swamp. I am different. I'm not a man to erect our national home on a foundation of mud. To endure, our home must be constructed on safe and pleasant ground.
Perhaps to assuage the agitations by organized labor, the president announces a 6-month provisional wage increment, among others.
Based upon our talks with labor, business, and other stakeholders, we are introducing a provisional wage award increment to enhance the federal minimum wage without causing undue inflation. For the next 6 months, the average low-grade worker shall receive an additional 25,000 naira per month. The new CNG conversion kits will start coming in very soon, as all hands are on deck to fast-track the usual lengthy procurement process. We are also setting up training facilities and workshops across the nation to train and provide new opportunities for the transport operators and entrepreneurs. Similarly, we are increasing investment in micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Commencing this month, the social safety net is being extended through the expansion of the cash transfer programs to an additional 15 million vulnerable households.
President Tinubu also highlights his effort at repositioning the nation's apex bank.
I pledged a thorough house cleaning of the den of malvisions the CBN has become. That house cleaning is well underway. A new leadership for the central bank has been constituted. Also, the special investigator will soon present its findings on the past lapses and how to prevent similar recurrences. Henceforth, monetary policy shall be for the benefit of all and not the exclusive province of the powerful and wealthy.
The president, who says he's not insensitive to the hardship associated with bold economic reforms, appeals to Nigerians for understanding and bravery for the future.
We can do it. We must do it.
Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
The Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, later explained that the President's announcement covered all federal civil servants. Mr. Gbajabiamila, who spoke after a meeting with labor unions, says the government is hopeful that the unions will call off their planned nationwide strike, which was scheduled to commence on Tuesday, the 3rd of October 2023. The Chief of Staff says certain agreements were reached which will benefit Nigerian workers and that labor will consider the offers by the federal government.
But I am happy to say that after 4 hours, we have reached certain agreements that inure to the benefit of the Nigerian worker. Agreements on wage bill, agreements on committees, on salary increment, agreement on the CN bosses, agreement on several other things, I believe, both TUC, Labour, and government side. We will, hopefully, we expect that Labour will call a meeting of their various branches and executive tomorrow to present the agreements that have been reached. And we pray and we believe and we hope that the strike will be called off on Tuesday. About the issue of low income workers only falling into the category of the wage bill. And they spotted that, and that has we did communicate with Mr. President, and he quickly did say and agree that that all categories of workers will be given the wage bill. There's nothing like low income, mid income, or high income. I think that is worthy of clarification tonight.
Meanwhile, the leadership of the labor unions confirmed the agreement with the government delegation, promising to revert to the federal government on the status of the proposed industrial action.
You know, we have looked at almost all the issues, all the promissory notes, you know, from the government, and we looked at how to translate them to reality, you know, and to be workable. Then we're going to take those promises to our organs. Of course, you know, these people here cannot just wake up and review and call off action. So, like he said, we're hopeful that our organs will have a look at them and give us a fresh mandate on what next to do.
We do hope that by tomorrow we are going to get across to our organs so that we can also look at it and cross-fertilize ideas and see the way forward. I'm sure we are coming back again tomorrow for that.
As part of activities to mark the country's 63rd independence anniversary, a military parade took place at the forecourt of the presidential villa in Abuja earlier today. Well, that parade was witnessed by President Bola Tinubu and his vice, as well as the leadership of the National Assembly. Others in attendance are the Chief Justice of Nigeria, top government officials, and members of the diplomatic corps. The occasion featured different military drills and marches and cultural displays, amongst other activities. Our State House correspondent Larry Lasisi has this report.
The forecourt of the presidential villa is the venue of the 63rd Independence Anniversary Military Parade. As early as 8 a.m., guests started arriving. In order of protocol, top government officials came in, received a welcome salute before proceeding to their seats. The occasion then commenced with the arrival of President Bola Tinubu. The military conducted colorful and well-orchestrated drills. Then, a cultural display showcasing the different tribes in the country. The highlight of this was the Minister of Special Duties, Honorable Zafanaya Jisalo, joining the troop to show his steps. The different troops then came together, symbolizing the unity of Nigeria despite our diversity. The The cutting of the anniversary cake and releasing of the anniversary pigeons marked the end of the day's event. Some dignitaries speak on the significance of the day.
Today, beyond the ceremonies, my take is that it calls for a moment of sober reflection. It's not really so much of gaining independence, not so much of marking the 63rd independence anniversary ceremony, but how much have we been able to achieve in the past 63 years after independence.
As of today, if you know what Nigeria is, I think you will pity anybody that in the hem of affairs of the country. The president, his ministers will have to put extra effort.
This is the maiden independence anniversary of the present administration, and Nigerians can only pray for a united and prosperous country in the years ahead. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasisi, for Channels Television News.
Following the Independence Day broadcast by President Bola Tinubu, some Nigerians have been reacting to the issues addressed by the president. Speaking on the special Independence Day program organized by Channels Television, guests say not much of the issues agitating the minds of citizens were addressed.
I would say, it's a good speech, but still there are things that are left out. The way things are in the land today, the growing poverty. People wanted to hear the big thing around minimum wage. People wanted to hear about how this subsidy whole thing will end, because as you see, it looks like it's spiraled out of control, at least for the prices of gas, diesel, with over 1,000 naira. You look at the exchange rate, people would like to hear more about that. How come that naira is equal to $1 to 1,000 naira, over 1,000 naira?
I expected Mr. President to have taken time to explain how banditry, kidnapping, and insurgency happen. Obviously, not taking it seriously and laying emphasis is to give credit to the times former President Jonathan said, "We had Boko Haram in my government, we eat and drink together."
In part two, after the break, as the country marks its 63 years as a nation, Channels TV data analyst Babajide Ogunsanwo joins us to discuss the country's political journey. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. President Bola Tinubu announces a 6-month provisional wage increment for low-grade workers in his independence message to Nigerians. Labour leaders to present agreements reached with the federal government to their members on Monday to determine the next line of action over its planned strike. United States court orders Chicago State University to release President Bola Tinubu's academic records to the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. And 13 persons killed in a fire incident that razed a Spanish nightclub as rescue efforts are still ongoing for people unaccounted for. Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, says that the present administration will not embark on blame game, but instead focus on fixing what is damaged in the country. Senator Tinubu made this remark during the Interdenominational service in Abuja to mark Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary. She says despite the challenges bedeviling the nation, Nigeria will rise like a phoenix out of the ashes of dependency. And we'll bring you more on that story later. Nigeria's 63rd Independence Day celebration was also celebrated across states. Our next report takes a look at the celebration in some states as various governors resounded the need for the country to remain united as we push for human development and economic growth.
The 63rd Independence Day celebration across the nation commenced in earnest following the message from President Bola Tinubu, who called on Nigerians to be ready for change in the nation.
To endure, our home must be constructed on safe and pleasant ground.
In Rivers State, during an interdenominational service for the commemoration of Nigeria's independence, Governor Fubara says he believes Nigeria is on the right course, but calls for citizens' participation to build the nation of everyone's dream.
Every one of us has a responsibility to bring that nation of our dream. It's not the sole responsibility of who is the president or who is the governor of the state, who is the local government chairman. No, it's all our duty.
From the Alex Ekweme Square in Oka, Anambra State, the Independence Day celebration rekindles hope for Nigeria as Governor Chukwuma Soludo insists that everyone must be intentional in the decisions to make Nigeria work.
We pray for the President of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, and his team at the federal government, members of the National and State Assembly, the judiciary, and members of the international community. Together, we can make Nigeria great.
While the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, says he's optimistic that Nigeria will soon rise to become one of the strongest nations in the world despite present challenges.
As we celebrate this year's independence anniversary, we should renew our faith in Nigeria. We must remain confident that this blessed country will ultimately become a great nation. I foresee a Nigeria that will sooner than later rise above the challenges that are currently impeding her march to a viral and prosperous nation.
The old eastern capital, Enugu, the state governor, Mr. Peter Mbah, who was represented by his deputy, urged Nigerians to work together for the country's peace and development, while pointing out education and skills for children and young people as a critical building block.
We are aggressively developing a modern skills acquisition program in collaboration with our development partners to equip more of our young people with the tools and skills they need to take advantage of the private sector building economy we have already started to unleash on the economy of our state and for the good of our people.
Also representing the Deputy Governor on behalf of the Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, salutes the courage and resilience of Nigerians for remaining united despite all the pitfalls and challenges facing the country.
Nigeria as a country was endangered by various challenges, but through resilience and capacity to stand as a nation, we have overcome such challenges.
With the colorful display of the various ethnic groups in Nigeria on Independence Day celebration, for many, this 63rd commemoration signals another day of rekindled hope and improved harmonious living as a nation.
According to Nigeria's first Prime Minister, the late Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the journey to independence started long before 1960. Well, tonight, our focus is not just on how much has been achieved in over 6 decades. We will find out how much more can be achieved in the days ahead. Babajide Ogunsowo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data consultant, is here to share this insight. Hello, Babajide. It's good to have you.
Happy Independence.
Same to you. And this is the 63rd speech made by a Nigerian president at the independence. How similar or different was this speech this time?
That's a lot. But what I saw in this speech was some good and some bad. And I'd like to start with the bad. Now, why do I say there was some bad? First is, for you to organize what's in front of you, you have to first start by organizing what's behind you. And for over a decade, I've studied what has been behind the presidents when they make their independence speech. 2 Nigerian flags and 2 flags representing the president's seal. But what I've noticed, Anne, is year on year during Independence Day speech, these flags that are behind the president have no order. They keep moving. So sometimes we see at Independence, the Nigerian flag is at the extreme, the seal, the flag representing the seal of the president is at the center. Other times, it's in no particular predictable order. So the question is, if the president's handlers have no order on how flags that represent the nation are arranged, flags that are behind the president, how do we organize what is in front of the president? And so, again, like previous speeches, we see a disorder in how flags behind the president are arranged. The second, Anne, is this speech was short and slow, and I'll explain. What do I mean by it was short? 14 minutes. The last time a speech made by the president at Independence Day was as short as 14 minutes was way back 8 years ago, 2015, when President Buhari, again, first time was going to be reading that Independence Day speech as civilian president in 2015. He read that speech at and it was only 10 minutes. So it's been 8 years that we've seen a speech as short as 14 minutes. And this speech was slow. President Tinubu read this speech at approximately the rate of 60 words per minute. None of President Buhari's speeches were that slow. His slowest was 93 words per minute. Again, the president read a speech that was short and slow. Finally, why do I say that is bad news? In this speech on independence, there was no mention on education, no mention on health, no mention on that big word, corruption. However, we find some good news again in this speech. Why the good news? Good news because the president talked about trust in the leadership of the security agencies. The president has talked about that he feels that he will keep remaining committed and he will show his excellence. And can we have an Independence Day speech without going into the history of all of this, where our founding fathers, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, also made some strong remarks. If we take a look at some of those big moments from 1960 and some of those remarks made by Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, it will allow us to know how much progress we've made. Remember some of those words at independence. We have arrived. He talked about independence not just only meant that we're going to be doing better as self-government, but we must be able to be ready to deal with the grave international issues, and again, a new chapter in our history and indeed the world. In this speech, we've seen the president say that there's no one greater or lesser than each other. The nation belongs to you. And we've seen that those that feel that the country will be torn apart are mistaken.
But Babajide, is there any way to measure the welfare of citizens in the last 63 years?
There are different ways, but one standard way is to compare the welfare of Nigerians with the welfare of other nations that we aspire to compete with. And the World Bank provides, yes, some information about that. And if we look at the World Bank's indicators in the last 3 decades, it provides us some good news, some bad, and some ugly news. The good news, Anne, is as at 1990, Nigeria's gross domestic product, GDP, measured on a per capita basis, purchasing power parity basis, show that GDP was higher than that of China and India in 1990. Good news. The bad news shows that between 2000 and 2010, our GDP declined from 2000. We saw an increase from $2,963 per capita to $4,857 per capita. Some good news. Bad news is that between 2010 and 2020, it has declined from $4,857 to almost the same $4,865. So in summary terms, as at 1990, Nigeria's GDP per capita was higher than those of China and India.
All right. Babajide, let's quickly wrap up this. But the president has already made promises to remain committed and even serve faithfully. How can he continue to build the trust of citizens in public administration? And what's the future looking like from here?
The future is just to focus on what citizens say their own priorities. And if we look at, based on research done recently by Lantana and the Alliance for Democracies Globally, they asked Nigerians what do they feel should be the priorities of government. First priority should be, number 5, improve education. 4, invest in security and defense. Number 3, promote economic growth. Number 2, reduce poverty. And the number 1 request from citizens, fight corruption. So in summary, the government should focus on these 5 things and hope for the best.
All right, we pray always for the best and a better Nigeria. Thank you very much. Babajide Ogunsanwo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst. Thanks a lot for your time and your contribution. And we go back to our story where the First Lady of Nigeria, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, is saying the present administration will not embark on blame game, but instead focus on fixing what is damaged in the country.
It's Nigeria's 63rd Independence Day celebration, and Christians in the Federal Capital Territory arrived at the National Christian Center for an interdenominational service to commemorate the occasion. The service is attended by Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, high-ranking government officials, federal lawmakers, representatives from the judiciary, heads of military and paramilitary organizations, as well as members of the diplomatic corps. Hymns are sang in thanksgiving for the country. Special prayers are made for good governance, security, and peace in the country.
Let us ask the Lord to heal our land.
However, Nigeria's 63rd Independence Day anniversary is coming at a time when Nigerians are grappling with a hike in the cost of commodities and transportation because of the removal of fuel subsidy, as well as insecurity and wide-scale unemployment.
The promise on our economy.
These challenges reflect in the sermon of the day, especially as the federal government and labor unions engage in dialogue to resolve the impasse that trailed the fuel subsidy removal.
We want to thank Mr. President. I listened to his speech on Democracy Day and wonderful promises. The promise on our economy, the promise on our security. I share the optimism of the president, but I want Mr. President and all our leaders in Nigeria to know that Nigerians, they are tired of promises. The only way to make a difference is to be sure that these promises are turned into action.
However, the wife of the president is optimistic that Nigeria will emerge better from these difficult times.
We are not here to put blame on any administration, but to fix what is damaged. My husband is not a magician. He's going to work brick by brick, and I believe and I hope that you will have faith in this administration. The best is yet to come for us.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation appeals to Nigerians to give government more time to find solutions to the myriad of problems confronting the country.
Solutions to complex problems can never be as instant as coffee. It takes time.
The message of hope appears to re-energize the congregation, who offer more Thanksgiving songs and take part in the merriment during the service. Linda Kibi, Channels Television News.
Nigeria's independence anniversary, which falls on a Sunday, afforded Christians the opportunity to commemorate the day in various worship centers. Right here in Lagos State, the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Resurrection Parish, Annex in Lekki, held a special Thanksgiving service, which focused on showcasing Nigeria's unity in diversity.
As a special Thanksgiving service commemorating Nigeria's independence anniversary,
members of the RCCG Resurrection Parish Annex in Lekki are dressed in outfits characteristic of the tribe and culture they represent. The special Sunday service has as its theme, Together We Stand, with various activities put together to reflect the mood of the day.
Nigeria has three main cultures, and they are Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo. That's why we are called Wazobia. Dalu.
There are presentations from children and teenagers. Also from major tribes, showcasing Nigeria's rich cultural diversities. A drama piece highlights the importance of unity irrespective of tribal differences.
We can build Nigeria, and Nigeria will be great again.
And cutting of the anniversary cake.
Now let's scream that name. Let's give Jesus a clap of praise.
The pastor in charge of the parish speaks about the role of the church in promoting unity.
The church that we have is supposed to be the church of Christ. So what we are trying to let people know is that we are not coming to promote tribal churches. We are coming to promote a church that is being controlled by Christ.
For members, there is still hope in spite of the challenges the nation faces.
There may be challenges, but we are very lucky to be together, and we pray for more stability.
There's still hope. We have a lot to do, but especially from what we have from that service, nobody should give up hope on Nigeria.
Beyond the celebration, this Christian faithful harp on the fact that everyone has a role to play in sustaining the nationhood that will translate in development for the benefit of all.
Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates are not left out of the Independence Day festivities as they gathered in Dubai to celebrate. The event, organized by residents led by Shola Onodipe, brought together both young and old for a day of dialogue, talent showcase and networking. Our correspondent Mayowa Degoke reports.
A moment of national pride as a group of Nigerians in the United Arab Emirates gathered to celebrate the Independence Day 2023.
Welcome to this 63rd anniversary or celebration of the Nigerian Independence Day.
Organized by Shola Onodipe, it's the second edition of the event, which aims to promote a thriving community of Nigerians as well as encourage good relationship with the host community.
I promise you it's going to be a wonderful day, that you're going to enjoy and experience lots of fantastic Nigerian culture, Nigerian music, Nigerian food, and Nigeria in every total sum of it.
In the room are members of the diplomatic corps, seasoned professionals, and entrepreneurs. It's an opportunity for members of the community to dialogue as stakeholders both home and abroad.
I think it's one of the things that I consistently amplify anywhere I find myself in. Don't look at me and establish the fact that you've met one Nigerian that has maybe done one or two things and it gives you the impression that we're all like that. No.
We have to appreciate that there's a lot of work to be done, and we cannot rely on government alone to do this, because they will not be able to manage the crisis that we have.
The event also presents the opportunity to showcase talented Nigerians in entertainment, fashion, and entrepreneurship.
I think from now, we need to sit down and say, okay, we need to fix what we lose before now. We need to put them in order and let everything come together.
I'm happy that Nigerians have started coming together and supporting each other even more. So I want to say to Nigerians, let's keep supporting each other and let's look out for each other.
First and foremost, the latter in terms of Nigerian spirit is absolutely incredible. I think the togetherness, the hunger, the drive, especially within the entrepreneurial life, within the ecosystem, is bubbling. It's like a melting pot.
The meeting ends on a high note as Precious Michael, representing Abia State, is crowned Miss Nigeria UAE. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Maya Wadigoke for Channels Television News.
The news just reaching us as the federal government of Nigeria has raised the salary adjustment to 35,000 naira as against the 25,000 naira which was earlier announced as increment for federal government workers. Again, the new adjustment is now 35,000 naira as against 25,000 naira. And to other stories, the United States District Court of the Northern District of Illinois has ordered the Chicago State University to release the academic credentials of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the presidential candidate of the PDP, Mr. Atiku Abubakar. The judge, Nancy Maldonado, noted that the CSU raised no objection to the first judge, Jeffrey Gilbert's decision that the academic record be made public. The court explained that any intrusion on Tinubu's privacy interest in his educational records is outweighed by Mr. Atiku's interest in the sought-after discovery. The judge overruled Mr. Tinubu's objections to Gilbert's recommended ruling and therefore adopted the ruling in full. On September the 19th, Judge Jeffrey Gilbert, a U.S. magistrate judge, granted the request and ordered CSU to release Mr. Tinubu's academic records within 24 hours. But President Tinubu filed an appeal against that order, while Mr. Atiku asked the court to overrule the president's objection. 63 years since independence, how has Nigeria fared in the area of infrastructure? Well, one of the priorities of the president now, as highlighted in his agenda, is infrastructure. The president aims to modernize and expand public infrastructure to grow the economy at an optimal rate. A constitution of focus today in continuation of that, President Tinubu's economic agenda. Our correspondent, Dari Dowu, looks at the infrastructure plan of the current administration.
Road, rail, waterways and air travel. The economic prosperity of any nation is tied to this public infrastructure. Nigeria's infrastructure deficit, amounting to 30% of its gross domestic product, falls short of the international benchmark of the 70% set by the World Bank. That's according to the International Trade Office of the U.S. Department of Commerce. This is corroborated by Professor Ndubuisi Nwokuma, the director of the Center for Economic Policy Analysis and Research of the University of Lagos.
Nigeria has a very great deficit when it comes to infrastructure. Just like we talk about in economics, we have what we call social overhead capital. And that is what drives economic growth, because there must be some basic infrastructure. I talk about gross capital formation, or gross fixed capital formation, which is very, very critical. Nigeria has a very great deficit, and unless we address that, I don't think the economy has any progress that we will expect to come from it.
President Bola Tinubu had announced and also reiterated the creation of a new infrastructure fund, part of a series of measures to boost the economy and ease the impact of fuel subsidy removal.
To ensure better grassroots development, we set up an infrastructure support fund for states to invest in critical areas. States have already received funds to provide relief packages against the impact of rising food and other prices.
There is a functional rail system in some corridors, and the federal government recently inaugurated the movement of cargo from the busiest seaports to the rail line. The president is expected to pick up the uncompleted work from where his predecessor left off. 1896, the British government started the first rail line along the Lagos-Ibadan corridor. By 1964, more than 11 million Nigerians were already using the service across the country. But as time went by, the numbers dipped. The former President Muhammadu Buhari seemed to have got the country back on the track. But what is the plan of the current administration? I asked the Minister of Transportation what this government plans to do differently.
First and foremost is to ensure what is on ground is put into use, because even what is on ground is too enormous for us to achieve as a country. So once we are able to achieve what is being put on ground, then we'll look further to decide on the expansion.
On road infrastructure, the Minister of Works, Senator David Umahi, has been visiting federal projects across the country and also quite vocal about the use of concrete pavement in road construction. He says it is more cost-effective and durable.
Most roads in this country do not last up to 5 years, and this is what we want to arrest. This road, beautifully constructed, is going to last more than 50 years, and this is it. No job will be awarded under me henceforth without it being on concrete pavement.
With the country's population growing at the rate of over 2.5% per year, the current infrastructure in the country is overstretched. A lot more needs to be done.
What government needs to do is to do some kind of, to leverage on the link with the country already has with China. China is ready to invest if there are no bottlenecks. They've done that for many African countries. All you need to do is to see how you can leverage on our oil resources. Or talk about, like it happened before, even for the airports, counterpart funding, to see how they can take a large portion of the funding, more than happened before. And then we can now religiously maybe provide money so that they can come in and provide this infrastructure. And over the years, if the government is faithful, we can get these things functional. And the other area that also we can do is to talk about user charges, where you now begin to introduce toll. You now begin to toll the roads.
As Nigeria marks the 63rd Independence Day anniversary, there are hopes that the country will live up to its full potential and also continue to build public infrastructure to the benefit of all Nigerians. Dari Idowu, Channels Television News.
Let's now get some more insights into the government plans for infrastructural development. And we're being joined now by the head Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School, Professor Olawale Ajayi. Thank you very much, Professor, for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin with the obvious question. How can Nigeria bridge the obvious gap and deficit in Nigeria's infrastructure to foster economic development?
Simply put, we have to invest annually in upgrading the infrastructure stock and in maintenance of existing hard infrastructure. There's also the need to reform the governance, the institutions around infrastructure. I think that is the minimum that can be done. There is a national integrated infrastructure master plan, which suggests that, recommends that Nigeria should spend about $2.3 trillion up to 2043. Obviously, the issue is, will that money come? But it's quite obvious that for a nation that is expected to be about 400 million people in about 2050, we must ensure that the infrastructure that will drive growth and development is there and is actually being built up ahead of those increments in population that we expect.
All right, but if you were to advise the president on the immediate, medium and long-term framework or plan or strategies to take or pay attention to, what would that be in infrastructure?
I would rather say that the existing plans look very good, and if we can implement those plans the way they are, that would be very good. If we can, get the investment into ensuring that existing plans as far as energy, transportation, housing, the broadband plan, education, health, if we can ensure that these are implemented, I think that would be a good step. And ensuring that this is not just at the federal level, but there is essential unity of action at the unit levels of government.
All right, but let's turn our attention to transportation now. There are obvious gaps, but do you think that the government has been strategic in terms of paying attention, in terms of spread, and of course, creating a multimodal transport infrastructure in the state and the country?
I would say that there has been some appreciable work. I mean, if you look at the previous administration, you've seen work on the roads. You've seen quite a lot of work in terms of rail, and of course there was some work in the aviation sector. Quite a lot of activity, particularly in some of the states, as far as marine transport is concerned. So I would say that one must at least give kudos to where this is due, where it is due, and it is now important to build on that foundation.
All right, thank you very much. Head Department of Strategy at the Lagos Business School, Professor Olawale Ajayi. Thanks a lot for your contribution on the News at 10.
Thank you for having me.
And now to arts. What does the world need? Is a solo exhibition by multidisciplinary artist Sadiq Williams at the AMG Projects Art Gallery in Lagos. The artist shows his love for culture and other influences in an array of artistic media while thrilling the audience with his martial art skills. We'll see it on Art Review tonight.
It rained cats and dogs, but that didn't stop family, friends, and art lovers from turning up to witness this unique solo exhibition put together by multidisciplinary artist Sadiq Williams at this gallery in Lagos.
Where the world is at now, I think it's a pivotal question we should be asking ourselves. I think asking our neighbors, asking our family, asking our friends, and I think I'm of the strong opinion that the world actually needs maybe to step back a bit. I'm a strong opinion that the world needs a lot more art, a lot more creative thinking.
Inspired by his journey, Yoruba heritage, poetry, fashion, films, martial arts, interactions, and more.
This is my journey so far. I'll say about 20 plus years, but I've been in film, I've been in the music space. I've always been an artist since I was a child. I write. So this is a layer, I've got a background in architecture and design. So this is all coming to bear. I've taken time how they are to each other. I'm a very big spokesperson for that mindset that we shouldn't look at, oh, I'm just an architect or I'm just an art. No, like we're all cousins, we're all sisters. There's a lot that each space has brought to the other, for it to grow.
The art community also has a few views on what the world needs, and urgently too. A space has been provided to pen it down.
The world needs love. But there's no love in the world today. And that is where we're having all the crises we're having. No love of self, no love of neighbor, no love of God, no love of nation. That is the basic, that is the main reason there's so much crisis in the world today.
The weather is now agreeable, so the audience is outside as issues explored in the paintings find expression in this performance, which reveals a cultural connectivity across continents.
And in the world of sports, Rivers United have advanced to the group phase of the CAF Confederations Cup following a 2-0 win against Burkina Faso's Etiel Filante in the return leg of the final preliminary round. Alex Soyowa got the 2 goals for the pride of Rivers in the second half as the Nigerian representatives advanced 2-0 on aggregate. And Nicolas Dominguez's goal on the home debut secured a 1-1 draw for the 10-player Nottingham Forest against Brentford at the City Ground in another game which featured VAR flashpoints. The Bees looked set for their first league win in 5 games. That's after Musa was sent off and Christian Nogard headed in the resulting free kick. A share of the spoils keeps Forest 1 point ahead of Brentford in 11th and 13th, respectively, in the English Premier League table. And to a sad one, at least 13 people have died in the fire that engulfed 3 nightclubs in the Spanish city of Murcia. The blaze broke out on Sunday morning in the Fonda Milagros nightclub known as La Fonda. It spread to neighboring clubs as patrons rushed to escape the packed dance floors.
The city's mayor said earlier that at least 7 people were killed in the fire and that rescuers were still searching for people unaccounted for after the blaze. The fire broke out around 6 in the morning in Teatro nightclub in Atalayas on the outskirts of the city, according to emergency services. Video from a local newspaper showed flames consuming the building. The death toll now up to 13 as the morning progressed. In the video, one could see the collapsed roof and flames and smoke rising from inside the building, with fire trucks at the scene. Diego Serral of Spain's National Police says it's difficult to pinpoint where exactly the fire started and that identification of the bodies would take time. Spanish media reported that several celebrations were taking place at the time the fire started. Outside the club, young people hugged, looked shocked as they waited for information. This is believed to be the country's worst nightclub fire in more than 30 years. Back in 1990, 43 people were killed in a blaze in a venue in Zaragoza.
Fresh fighting has broken out at the northern Mali side in Tuareg rebels who say they have taken control of the town of Mamba from the army. This is coming after the separatist fighters said they had killed more than 80 soldiers in the center of the country. The government confirmed an army base in the Moti region had been targeted on Thursday, but it gave no details. And the main news again. President Bola Tinubu today announced a 6-month provisional wage increment for federal workers to 35,000 naira. The president, who made this announcement in his Independence Day broadcast to Nigerians, also announced the federal government has deployed compressed natural gas consumption buses, which will operate as lesser rates and ultimately reduce transport fares for Nigerians. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, happy independence and God bless Nigeria.